Hello, how is everybody doing today? So we have Miss Amanda with us today, and she's going to talk a little bit about her experiences with having an amazing online digital presence for her industry. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my experiences as well. We all know that the digital space is not going anywhere, at least not anytime soon. So we want to make sure that we are attracting people that perhaps we're not even looking for a career opportunity at this moment. But say, for instance, you have an aesthetically pleasing digital space or e-portfolio, someone finds you. Again, remember, you're not even looking for this opportunity. And what happens? Sometimes you can be offered a higher salary. It could be for an even more fulfilling career opportunity. And also, it could be something that you just feel good about. I've noticed that when I put a lot of time and energy into creative pieces, I tend to just feel better about myself, like accomplished. So we're going to talk a little bit about both the most direct ways of putting your presence out there and some of the indirect ways that having a digital presence can help you in your career. This is the case for no matter where you are in the career development process. You could be just a recent graduate thinking that, well, what do I have to offer to the world, all the way up to CEO level. So, Amanda, before we get started about my experiences, I just want for people to kind of get to know a little bit about you. You can share whatever you want to share, but just start us off just by sharing one inspirational quote that resonates with you. And if you'd like to share a little story about yourself that you think that they would love to hear, you can feel free to do so as well.
Yeah, so one quote that I wanted to bring up was from Morgan Freeman, and I think that it really resonates with what we're talking about today, which is you either evolve or evaporate. And I think especially in this time during Corona and in 2020, like the digital space is, as you said, is not going anywhere. And I feel like more than ever, you have to have a digital presence, something that is unique to you, but can also be professional, can be shown to companies that you want to work for.
Yes, and in the year 2050 or even the year 3000, I'm sure we're going to still be using some method of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Main point is you want to be able to connect with others in a way where they can see you as someone that can add value to their organization. And how much more than to show someone that you can add value by your use of technology. We know that the world is shrinking because we can connect so quickly to people way on the other side of the world. So, Amanda, tell me just first off, how long have you had an interest in creating digital presence for people? And how has this not served you in the past when you didn't have a strong digital presence?
I think I've had this passion since the beginning of my college years. So I did classes where they would teach us about personal branding and then would be able to create our own website. And I really enjoyed that. So I felt like there's a lot of people out there that don't have that same skill and like they would like to have a digital presence, but they just don't know how. And so I feel like that's like where I fit in because I really like helping people and like solving people's problems. But I also want to be creative online. So I feel like that was a great place for me to have my niche. One time I wouldn't say it's really a pitfall, but it's like I thought it was a setback, but really it helped me. I wanted to be an intern at a music venue in DC, U Street Music Hall. I wasn't able to meet them because I was overseas. I was back home in Tanzania, which is where I'm from. And they couldn't meet me first. So I sent in my portfolio and they really liked it. And they said, okay, we want to meet with you. And I said, I can't necessarily meet you at this time, but I would be able to be back in the city the next semester. So like, even though I wasn't able to meet them right then there, my first impression was strong because my digital presence was strong. So I was able to like still be in their minds the next like 6 months afterwards. And then I was able to get the same internship.
Awesome. So you were able to get that same internship 6 months later, and you weren't even able to be there in their presence, physically in their presence. Awesome. And I have had opportunities presented to me that there's no way in the world I would ever have connected with these individuals if I didn't have an online presence. And, I believe that, some people, they have a negative opinion of having a digital presence. They feel like, well, I don't want to be seen. I don't want all my business out there. And I'm more private and reserved. And you do not have to put all your business out there to have a digital presence. If you want to remain 100% strictly professional and private, that's okay. As you get to know people, then you can begin to open up however you choose to open up. But the point of the matter is, whenever you can have an aesthetically pleasing digital space of some sort, there are opportunities that may fall into your lap that you were not looking for. There have been many times that I've been on different social media platforms, and just because someone had a creative, eye-catching profile, I automatically started to review what was on their space and start thinking about ways that I could potentially collaborate with them. Now, if they hadn't had that, I might just kind of gloss over their name and keep on going. So I often tell people, you never know when someone is online and they're looking for someone with your exact skill set and gifts and talents. And perhaps, maybe you are offered an amazing opportunity that you would have never seen coming. So one of the things that I often have ladies do is, before you can actually create an amazing digital presence, you have to know a little bit more about yourself. And you also have to know a little bit more about the value that you add to the world, particularly the industry that you're looking to go into. So if you can recall, when we first met, I said that I place a lot of emphasis on understanding your true personality type, also understanding how people perceive you in the world, and also writing down your likes and dislikes. But not only that, getting really familiar with your natural skills, talents, and gifts. And also reflecting on a time in your life where you discovered that you were truly passionate about the industry that you're looking to pursue and grow in. Those are all key elements that you can place in your online presence. But if you're not self-aware, it begins to be, well, I don't know, what do I say? What do I put? What's important? What are they looking to see? Well, what they're looking to see is the true you, for one. And they're also looking to see a little bit about your story and your past and how that led up to where you are today. And then you can begin to talk about, and this is where I would like to see myself in the future. Because if your future is in line with what they do in their industry, you may partner with someone that, as I said, if it had not been for the online space, you would have never met. I'm going to give you an example of how this played out for one of the ladies that I worked with previously. She's extremely shy and reserved, and she's in the videography and photography space. And if it wasn't for, her sorority, she might not have a whole lot of friends because she's very reserved. So I asked her to reach out to people that do the kind of work that she does. And because she implemented what I suggested, she was able to connect with someone in the celebrity space by just sending a simple message on a social media platform. They connected, and when they connected, the person that she reached out to sent her back a video and said, well, this is a little bit more about me. Now, this video was also on their website. You don't have to pay thousands of dollars to create a website. You can have a basic website. You would input your short storytelling video that talks a little bit about your passion. You could have an area of any papers, assignments, highlights from work, anything that shows that you are a fully capable professional and that you add value. You can have another section of just strictly testimonials and accolades, things that other people have said about you. Oftentimes, it is seen as a plus when someone else can back up what you are also saying about yourself. So yeah, you might say, yeah, I'm wonderful, I'm great, I could do anything that you ask me to do for your organization, you know, whatever you want to say that shows you as a very talented individual. But when you have 3, 5, 20, 100 other people backing you up saying, yeah, and this is why she's amazing, well, people begin to pay a little bit more attention. All right. So I'm going to show you real quickly an example of that on my LinkedIn page. And you do not have to necessarily have a LinkedIn presence if you don't want to. Totally up to you. But what I've seen is that because LinkedIn is primarily seen as a networking platform for professionals that don't mind other people also talking about corporate and business ventures, most of the time they don't mind when I ask them for a recommendation, when I give them a recommendation. They don't mind connecting in a professional manner. So I'm going to give you an example of some content that you could create on your LinkedIn page. And I'm still updating mine currently. By the time that you review this video, you may see that it looks even more different from what you're seeing here. But I just simply have my name and some features. I was seen in the Huffington Post and Orlando Talent magazine. I've contributed to both of those. And I've also contributed to 2 other magazines, both Aspire and Inspire. One is an arts and entertainment magazine. The other one is a entrepreneurial magazine. Contributed to those as well, but I didn't have enough space to include all of that here. So I just chose 2 that I want to highlight as my profile bio here, okay? And when I say that you want to add some relevant content, this is what I mean. Now, I'm doing this on LinkedIn. You don't necessarily have to have a LinkedIn profile if you want to. If you just wanted to create just a one-page website, for example, you could use some of this similar content for that one-page website, just to give you some examples. I have a blog article here, From Mundane to Marvelous, Living the Life of the Queen You Were Meant to Be. So I talk a little bit about my experiences of being in the corporate world and maneuvering into the world of entrepreneurship, okay? Then I've hosted several podcast interviews and YouTube success story interviews. So I have an example of that right here. This is Veronica. She was Miss Teen USA in the state of Pennsylvania here in the US. So I chose hers as one that I wanted to highlight. And then when you scroll over, I have some additional content like my podcast here. I have an old testimonial here that I included, but you can include whatever you want to that you want to highlight. And as I said, I'm still updating this. Depending on when you watch this, there might be some other material here. I also decided that I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one saying that I was amazing. So you'll see that I have some licenses and certifications here in the field of health and wellness, as well as career development. And when you scroll down, I asked just a few ladies to provide me with recommendations. Some people will offer me a recommendation without me asking, but then there are others that if I feel they got an amazing result, I'll ask them, do you mind writing me a testimonial or a recommendation for this? There are times in my past where I wasn't ready to look for a job opportunity. However, I wanted to be prepared if there was one that came about. So in my previous corporate position, I asked some people that were there as colleagues that got along well with me and that we had worked on several projects with, if they would write me a dynamite testimonial. So they just simply wrote 2 to 3 paragraphs of how they worked with me and how they saw me interact with others to show my interpersonal skills, and basically just say, Ebony would be amazing for your particular corporation. It's very straight to the point and simple, and it doesn't need to be, super lengthy, just something additional that you can submit as a part of the application process. Now, when you first submit an application, a lot of times they are not asking for you to submit testimonials or recommendation letters. Sometimes that comes later. Sometimes they never ask you. Okay. So that's why it's important for you to be proactive on the front end. Have several of them available. I would say at least 3 of them available. PDF file if you can, and just have them saved so that when the time comes and you're either one of 2 things, you are in the interview room or you're applying for a job online, you can also upload those recommendation letters as additional files. A lot of times they'll say, submit your resume here, and now submit your cover letter here, and now there's an additional files area. So in the additional files area, you would have uploaded your, for example, 3 professional letters of recommendation. Okay. That's always going to stand out because most people don't think to do that. And if they think to do it, they think to do it later. They think to do it once they're in the interview, right? But doing this is going to boost your chances of even getting an interview. You can also use this same exact strategy if you were to have an informational interview with someone that you just met online. When they say, can you send me a copy of your resume? You can also attach a couple of your best recommendation letters. Again, this is not something most people think to do. So you always want to be thinking in terms of what is something that I can do in this stage of the career development process that other people are probably going to forget to do, and that's one of them. Now, let's say you forgot. Let's say that you forgot to submit your recommendation letter during the application process. Let's say that you forgot to submit it during the interview. Oh gosh, Ebony told me to do this. I totally forgot. You can also submit this as part of the follow-up, the thank you process. After you've had an interview with someone or someone took some time out of their schedule to have a conversation with you, even if it was just an informational interview, you could thank them for their time through a thank you letter, but then also attach a recommendation letter. Just wanted to send these additional recommendation letters to you so that if you know the appropriate person that I can connect with, they have something else to learn more about me. Simple as that. They may look at it, skim over it, and continue on with their day. Or they might actually take a lot of time and read it line by line by line and say, oh my gosh, I'm so impressed. This is something I should do for my own professional development. You just never know how it's going to come across to the other person. But you having it available just shows that you were more creative, think outside the box from the typical person that's going through the standard job search and interview process and follow-up process. Okay, so whatever you do, always be thinking along the lines of who are some other people that can recommend and say good things about me. All right, so these are some examples of what you could also include on your own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-page website. Recommendations. You could even include a section that talks a little bit about your interests. Say you have a really awesome story that you want to tell. You could have a little section where you tell a short story that will allow you to connect with others, because as we know, when you read a resume or a cover letter, it can be seen as quite boring when you're just talking about professional, linear development. But if you were to throw in some type of story of a time when you were 7 years old and XYZ happened to you and it's in some relation to your career choice, then use that as a time to connect on a more human level with the recipient. All right. So Amanda is amazing at being able to put these together creatively for you. And I would love for you to connect with her. I'm going to provide all of her contact info in the description box. And she's going to take some time to learn a little bit about where you see yourself going and to get to know a little bit about the type of work that you've done so that she can put it together in an aesthetically pleasing digital presence so that no matter where you are in the world, what you're doing in your day, whether you feel like looking for a job or not, you have something that people can find you online in those times that you're not even searching. Okay, Amanda, what other things would you like to add? Is there anything that we haven't mentioned today that you feel like they should know about you and your skill level, or just things that maybe as I was talking, just kind of popped out in your brain, like, yeah, and she should also focus on this because this is important. Anything that you want to add before we end?
Yeah, just I wanted to include the fact that it's okay if you don't think you're like a super creative person or you don't have like a lot of stuff to like show. Just know that we're trying to make your resume come to life. So, and also just the fact that we have to show how you're unique compared to anybody else that might, they might choose for that particular role or position that you want to be a part of. Yeah.
Yes, yes. That's why you have Amanda there. Because you are not necessarily gifted in that area and you might not want to pretend that you are and just have something that looks amateur. She has been doing this for years, and some of the work that she has done for me, although I might be able to sit down and figure out how to do it, there are other things that I prefer to do in my day. So I'm sure you're very similar to that. There are probably other things that you prefer to do in your day. Whereas you would sit down at your computer and say, well, I have all these different programs and I have this amazing computer that I can use. I'll just do it myself. Well, that's all well and fine, but you could probably hand it off to someone like Amanda and she would be able to do it much quicker for you, and that gives you the time and energy to do other things in your day that are important to you. There have been many times when I've said to myself, well, this particular thing that I need done is so easy. I mean, it probably is something that I could teach my child to do, but I don't necessarily want to spend my time doing that. So think about it from a big picture perspective. If you knew that someone could create an aesthetically pleasing platform, a digital space for you, where you were able to present yourself to the digital world in a way that makes them stop and say, oh my gosh, I'm blown away. We need someone that thinks creatively like this to work for our company. No one else even thought to do this, but they did. You want for them to be saying that about you because that automatically takes you from being one in that stack of 500 applicants, which is very common these days, one in that stack of 500 applicants to being the one in that stack of 500 applicants. Anything else that you want to share at all before we close?
Yeah, I also want to also help with like a redesign of resumes and cover letters and LinkedIn. If you're not, versed in that area, you can also come to me for help. And yeah.
Yeah, and we all have to make sure that we are presenting ourselves effectively in our resume and cover letter. And there are some more creative industries out there that it's very important for you to showcase your creativity. And if you're someone that you feel like, well, I could just go online and I can just search for a certain template and they'll do most of the work for me. Yeah, that's all well and fine. However, there might be some coloring that you think looks good, but then when someone else looks at it, they'll say, yeah, that looks awesome, but why don't you also add a touch of this to it? And then you review it and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think to put the colors like that, So having two heads usually is better than one, especially when it comes to creative pieces where you're marketing yourself for the professional world. You don't want to have a space that looks like a 10-year-old did it either. So you have to have someone with the right eye that can say, not only is this beautifully done and aesthetically pleasing, but it's also very professional. And Amanda is amazing at that. So again, I'm interested in seeing how your digital space turns out, and all of her contact info is again in the description box. If you have any questions, you could definitely reach out to me and I can give you a little bit of more insight on branding so that you're not all over the place. But I would like to see how well you're able to maneuver up the corporate ladder based off of the fact that you did a creative project like this. So without further ado, you guys take this seriously. Take it seriously and connect with me if you decide that you want to continue to work with Amanda or someone else. I recommend Amanda, but connect with me if you decide that you want to work with Amanda. And let me see. Let me see your before and after. I'd be excited to present that to people that I know as well. Yeah. All right, you guys have an amazing day wherever you are in the world. Amanda, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And we have done a lot of work together. And after you've done most of what I've asked you to do, I'm always saying to myself, see, this is why I decided to outsource this. Because I would not have wanted to sit down for 10 hours to do something that maybe you could do in about 3. So I appreciate your time today. You guys have an amazing day wherever you are in the world, and I will connect with you soon. Bye.
Bye.